Welcome to Business Success Tips, where you learn to make more money in less time and have a lot more fun. I'm your host, Paul Sanneman. I'm founder of Contractor Staffing Source, where we help contractors build great teams. I'm excited today because this guy did not make the same mistake I made. I'm just kidding. It's like Paul Atherton. He's from Highspire. And tell him what your business model is. I think it's really exciting for the people listening to this.
Right. Thanks, Paul. Yeah. So our business model focuses on helping construction companies build wealth, essentially. But how we do that is we help them to build, first of all, self-managed companies. And then second, somewhere along that trajectory into becoming a self-managed company, we help them to deploy free cash flow above the working capital they need to grow into successful real estate investments.
Now, I've worked with probably, I don't know, 2,000 contractors, and the only ones that ever made any money basically made it in real estate. I have one guy, for example, I can't mention his name, but I have one guy who was a production home builder, right?
Yep.
And when he couldn't sell them, he'd rent them. That was his
Yep.
model, right? So he now is, I think he's 38 years old. He owns 380 rentals.
Yep. Yep.
His net
Yep.
worth of about 15, 20 million, give or take, right?
Yep.
And it's all from the rentals, right? Those are ones he couldn't sell. So it ended up being a good thing because if he can't sell, he just bought himself and rented it. So, and I have another couple of people that they made their money on, either, keeping what they have and renting it or in some way developing it versus like giving it away. Because if all you do is you build something and give it away, you made your nickel for today, but nothing for tomorrow, right?
Yeah, totally. Like I've seen so many companies, they strive and work so hard to increase their revenue by, 10%, 15% a year, and then increase their net profit percentage from 6 to 8 to 10 and 12 if they're doing really good, maybe 15 if they're exceptional. But over time, they just have like a little bit of money to put in their holding company at the end of the year. Those companies that are able to take some of that money and deploy it into real estate that's doing 20, 25% IRR year over year over year tend to, like you said, have tremendous wealth after 5 or 10 years that, their grandchildren eventually will thank them for. So that's what we do. Yeah.
So give me an example. You don't have to mention the company, but how does it specifically work? Give me an example, company A who is a roofing company or company B who is a home builder. Tell me how does it actually work?
Okay. So first of all, um, if you talk to anybody who's built wealth, they've typically done three things. Like when I talk about building serious wealth, they've done three things. They've owned a business, right? But that's only step one. They've also done two other things. They've bought and sold assets in a very, very smart way, more efficiently than the rest of the marketplace they're in. And then another thing that they've done is they've found a way to add value to those assets while they've owned them. And if you can do those three things at the same time, you're going to build up tremendous wealth.
So give me an
Right.
example.
So, yeah. So yes, I can give you a great example. I don't, it's hard to name names. I probably shouldn't,
You
but I
can
can
name
think of,
names like that guy just told you. I can't tell you his name, but he's now worth, 30 million more than me. So he did it
yeah,
right,
for
right?
sure. Yeah. So I know. Yeah. Okay. So I know a company, actually, two companies in my city. One was doing about 1 million net for the last 6 years. And they were taking a lot of that and putting it in their holding company. And they own maybe 5 or 6 rental properties around Victoria, just homes, and they're
Mhm.
paying down their mortgage and things like that. I know another company that actually started their business 15 years after the first company started. And the owner of that company is worth about $50 million, and they have roughly $200 million in real estate. Both companies, though, were operating at the same time. And the first company was doing significantly more in revenue for about a decade than the second company that I mentioned. So company A started out back in the 80s, and they grew to being about 20 million revenue a year over all that time, and only started getting into real estate, over the last like 10 years, I would say. Company B, they started in 2015, and they grew that organization to being about $25 million in revenue. But during that whole time, they were deploying capital into real estate in a very, very smart way. I should say, in a very, very smart way. Real estate is not a guarantee. You got to do it in a smart way. And they built up just tremendous wealth because they had all these assets that were appreciating in value while they were growing their operating company.
Mhm.
And then both business models started feeding one another.
So give me an example. So I talked about the guy who's a home builder. What about a guy who, a smaller guy? Let's say he does, I don't know, 5 million a year, nets a 500,000, and has a remodeling company. Is there any shop for a guy like that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 Because, so he said nets a 500,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much opportunity there. There's so much opportunity there. I can think of a number of people throughout North America that we work with that are in our program that have significant opportunities and wealth just because every year they've been taking a little bit of their money and deploying it into assets that they own that are doing 20-25% IRR because they know how to do it in a smart way. See, a lot of
Now,
people will take their money and they'll deploy, and there's nothing wrong with this, by the way. We're not saying to put all your money into real estate for these 25% deals, but a lot of people will take their money and they don't know how to invest it properly,
I
right?
know. I mean,
And
also, if you look, a lot of us went through 2008, right? And that
yep,
was not a good time. And so
for
a
sure.
lot of guys, had a bunch of spec homes, they lost them, they went under, and they still have like depression mentality, right? They, oh my God, don't do that again. And so they're, I'm going to say super cautious because they may have gone bankrupt. If not, it was close. And because they had, three spec houses and then the housing market dropped by 30%. If you were there, you may not have been there at the time, but it wasn't good.
I
Um,
was there. Yeah.
and they lost everything. Oh God, I'm never do that again. How
Yeah.
do you get over that?
Okay. Well, first of all, the key is to uh, enter real estate investment when it makes sense to do so. Okay. And that's why we have to put the focus on running a self-managed company because too many people will be working 60 hours a week in their company and then they'll start going buying real estate projects without really learning how to do it properly. COVID was a really hard time for people too. A lot of syndicators lost their shirt. Why is that? Because they paid too much for land, construction costs ballooned, and then interest rates went up. They got hit in three different areas
Right,
at once. And that same thing happened in 2008. So first of
right.
all, companies need to make sure the owners have the time and they're learning the industry so that when they enter a real estate project, they're buying the land at a price that offers them a clear path to the upside. That's number one. They have to know how to secure land properly. And two, they have to make sure that their cost basis, what they're paying to add value to that land, whether there's a new structure that's going on or they're improving an existing structure, makes sense. And then they have to make sure that they're pricing in any fluctuations in um, the interest rates. Okay, they have to have a
So,
hedge. And if they don't have that hedge, then just don't enter the deal because real estate, once you're in, it's really hard to get out if the market turns against you.
right.
So now how do you
Exactly.
get over that mentality? So we actually have a number of people in our program. Many clients in our program are actually in their 50s and they all have a lot of horror stories of what happened in 2008. Well, they've learned a lot of lessons and um, what they're doing is they're learning from people that actually didn't lose their shirts in 2008 and didn't lose their shirts in COVID. Like I said, a lot of syndicators lost their shirts in COVID, but a lot of people didn't. A lot of people actually did pretty good because they didn't get way out over their skis. They kept their debt to equity ratios under control. And as a result, their projects are still solvent. Yeah.
Now, you actually help supply capital for a build. Let's say this guy who's doing, I said 5 million makes 500,000. You can help him raise capital to like buy homes or buy an apartment building or whatever. Is that something else you do?
Yeah, so we have an investment fund, Highspire Capital, and yeah, so we'll take some of that knowledge and help builders go and raise capital from their network. A lot of builders have a great network of accredited investors, so we'll teach them how to do that properly. Furthermore, if a project makes sense, they're they have the opportunity to submit that project for consideration in our fund. And if it makes sense, we're happy to look at it and come alongside them as a limited partner. And
What kind
just
of numbers are we talking about? Millions, hundreds of 10 million? I mean, how much is like a minimum investment that your fund will make?
so right now we're looking at one that's 3 million
Okay,
is
so
our
that's not a lot of
investment.
money in today's
No,
market.
no, we're looking at only in the middle market. So the middle market is anything that's like a little bit more expensive than your average surgeon can afford, but it's probably too small for somebody who's making $4 million as a portfolio manager.
Right,
So these are properties that are $5 to $20 million. That's kind of the range of properties that we're
right,
looking at, which is actually very, very accessible for a lot of contractors.
right. And
Yeah.
that's, you do only real estate, I'm assuming?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the fund does only real estate.
But the
Yeah.
fund does only real estate. That's what the fund does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, how would you go about, I'm sure people listen to this, how would you go about engaging the contractor? Because I know a lot of people have coaches. I mean, but their coach
Yep.
doesn't provide equity in anything. And they give good, how do you combine sort of the coaching part with the equity investment? How does that work?
So first of all, we tell people we're very clear. If you want capital, and that's the only reason you're here, then keep looking elsewhere because there's a
Okay.
lot of competition. And but we say what we'll do is we'll help you, first of all, get a self-managed company. There's a lot of tools and habits that reflect the patterns of success you see in companies that have already done this really well. We're going to help you do that. And then tangent to that, when it makes sense and your company is ready to start building generational wealth, we're going to help you go and do what construction companies do best, which is add value to land um, in a very, very efficient way. Now, when they start looking at deals, when one makes sense, we say, if it falls within these parameters of Highspire Capital, what we'd love to do is take a look at it for consideration. Yeah.
Now, being a coach for many years, I mean,
Yep.
I had a hard time in my years getting the craftsman personality, like carpenter, whatever, but some kind of craftsman, into the entrepreneur personality. It's a different mindset, right? So
Yeah, sure.
somehow you
Yep.
got to get the carpenter to think like a business person, which means he's everything's not a project that lasts 4 months, right? He's thinking like a year, 2 years in advance. And I remember one time it was one of those defining moments. I was working with my clients, and we were working on cash flow and working on projections and looking at marketing and all that stuff. I said, "You do not value this." He goes, "Bullshit! I took off work to do this. What do you think?" I
You
mean,
bring
they
up a
don't
good
get
point.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's very common. That's very common. A lot of people, and it's a bit of an identity. If the question I'm hearing is, hey, how do you help people change like their identity? Are they a business operator or are they a carpenter?
Right. And
Are they
then
a business
not
operator
that
or are
you
they a
have to go from business
superintendent?
operator to more of an entrepreneur investor, which is another shift, right? So you're
Yeah,
working literally on the business and you're taking yourself from, okay, my goal now is to build net worth, not to make the clients happy. It's a different kind of goal, right?
it is. Yep. A lot of it has to do with just how people perceive themselves. And I've seen that shift happen very, very quickly with folks. And sometimes it takes a very, very long time. A lot of this depends on who you're spending time with, though. Because I've seen it when we take the individual that you're describing, they know that there's beautiful business that they've been working at for a decade can be this amazing wealth building machine. They hear us say it, but they don't really see it until we put them in a room with people who have done it, and then they leave and you see the shift happen. And then they start valuing their time more. They start saying, okay, because there's two variables that business owners have to solve for. What's my return on capital and what's my return on time? When you first
Right.
start your business, what do you have a lot of?
A lot of time,
A lot of time. And what do you have none of?
capital.
Capital. And then when you've been running your business for 10 years, what do you have a lot of? Or
A lot of
more
capital
of.
and nothing. Right.
More capital, no time, right? And it's up to the business owner to start allocating resources and energy accordingly to solve for those two variables. And what you
Right.
often see is operating companies that hit $5 million, they kind of bounce against that ceiling. Because the business owners in sales, they're in operations, they're in marketing, they're just kind of doing everything. And like you said, putting 500 down every year, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a fantastic living. But it takes another mindset shift to say, okay, well, how do we grow this operation so that I'm running a leadership team who's going to run the company, and then I have more hours to think about how I'm going to turn this organization into a wealth building machine, because they have a network, they understand finance, they understand building science, they have all these things that can really help them do that effectively. But you got to get them there first, right? Which is where the self-managed company comes in.
So who's your ideal client, Paul?
You know what? We work with all different sizes of companies. We work with some that are, one person making a million revenue a year, $1 million in revenue a year, and they have like 3 staff. We work with
Hmm.
people like that, but we also work with companies that are doing 80 million a year. The companies that are
Okay.
doing 80 million a year obviously need us to solve different problems for them than the ones that are doing 1 million a year, but we work with all different types of companies.
Now, what is your coaching model? You provide people with systems, one-on-one coaching. There's a lot of different coaching models. What's your model?
Yeah, that's a great question. So every single client gets systems. All right. So they get simple, clear processes. I think in the age of AI, it's important for me to make that distinction. You can get processes all over the place now because people are getting ChatGPT to spit tons of documents out. We give our
Right.
clients simple, clear processes that have been stress tested against very, very high performing companies.
Hmm.
We give them coaching from people that have been involved in the construction industry, and we've also been involved heavily in real estate as well. Okay. We also give them a network. We give them access to people that have already done what it is that they're going to do and are probably 3 or 4 years ahead. Right.
Hmm.
Um, and uh, we combine all of those things to form just kind of a little world for them to help them increase the likelihood that they're going to get to where they want to go sooner than had they not been involved in the program. So, like for
Now, in that
example, the
work,
guys who are go ahead.
so is that like, I think of Builder 20, I think I've worked with a lot of coaching companies and they have different models. I mean, some are systems, some are like, here's the 5 systems, do it. Some they, hand hold through the whole system. So how's your pricing structure work with that?
Yep. So we have a very, very fair pricing structure. So every company, when they come into the program, they pay a set rate. They pay a set rate. Right now, it's $2,000 a month. It's just for every company. For the larger organizations, though, the ones with 80 staff and things like that, we have another tier, an enterprise program, that they can activate to get more of a boutique model as
Mhm.
their organization needs. We also have levers that companies can pull when they need extra support. Sometimes people need a coach to fly down and work with their team on something, and they have
Mhm.
access to that as well. So yeah,
Okay. And
yeah,
so now I look at it seems like an opportunity now that private equity has decided that I think AI has scared private equity a lot of from things like they don't want to do anything where selling information is going to make you money because that's dropping like a rock, right? So
yeah.
they're looking at, well, my AI can replace my doctor and my, psychiatrist and maybe my attorney, but it's not going to replace my guys putting on my roof, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So there's a lot of private equity coming into the roofing, various kind of service businesses.
yeah.
Do you get involved in that at all? Because it seems to me that there's an opportunity, at least if I was that kind of guy, if I have a roofing business. In fact, I had a client, I think she said, I've got 10, 15 million bucks. I'm going to start a roofing company in Nebraska. And I went, why? He goes, well, the roofers in Nebraska, either they're retiring or they're so young they don't know what they're doing. Nebraska has crappy weather. They always need roofs. And I know marketing. I know how to find people and I know how to run a business. I'll own that market in 5 years, which sort of makes sense, right?
Totally. Yeah, yeah, construction trades is a very fragmented industry. It's very fragmented. There's huge opportunity for private equity and for just people with good entrepreneurial skills to come in and and do very, very well, if I'm being honest. Like, look, there's a lot of very well-run construction companies out there that we see that are doing quite well, but they don't even have their brand sorted, and they
Right.
don't have sales systems, and they're not using their CRM to its full capacity, and they don't have an HR department, and they're a $20 million company. I mean, you do any one of those four things and you'll see accelerated gains right away.
Right. Well, I know it's interesting because a lot of these guys sort of don't know what they don't know, as you're familiar with. I call it sort of the wall. I've been in this industry for 50 years, so I've seen it go. I mean, I started, they didn't have pagers, so I've been around a long time. And
Wow.
I think what happened is I'm going to call it the Walmartization of construction. Like, remember the old town used to have it, how we used to have a hardware, I mean, all these little stores, right, in town. And they couldn't
Yep.
find employees, they couldn't find people, and life was really hard, and they're struggling in small town USA to make a living, right? All the
Yep.
various, grocery store, drugstore, all this. And all of a sudden, a Walmart comes outside of town. Somehow they find 400 people that didn't exist before they opened their Walmart. They open up Walmart, they got a better distribution center, better market, and they just suck all the business out of downtown. I mean, for better or worse, it has happened. It's like done between the
Yep.
boxes, right? Um,
Yep.
so I see sort of that happening, especially to the like roofing, the service businesses, where
Totally.
either you're going to build and learn. The good news, you can get good systems cheaper than you could before because there's a lot of technology out there if you use it, whether it's HubSpot or various ways of getting stuff cheap than it used to be, and be somewhat competitive and understand how to do marketing, recruiting. So hopefully they'll buy you up versus push you out of business. I mean,
Yeah, that's happening. That's a great business model, by the way, to package a lot of these companies that are doing okay under one roof, and they all work under one operating system. And yeah, I've known, like I said, I haven't been coaching as long as you, but I've known a number of companies that have done that, and the owners have fared quite well on the
right
other side.
now there's a
Yeah.
lot more cash than has ever been available because private equity,
Hmm.
their money's looking for a place to go, right?
Hmm.
Because
Yep.
the
Yep.
AI has disrupted a lot of those other industries.
Yep. Yep. That's true. That's good. I never thought of the AI component, but yeah, you're right. It makes a lot of sense that AI has a lower likelihood of being as much of a disruptor in the trade sector, which is a huge sector.
I mean, if you look at it, I mean, if you want to build a movie studio, I don't think so because you're going to be doing you're going to do multi-million-dollar movies on your home computer pretty soon. I mean, it's crazy, right?
Yep.
Or
Yeah.
what about medicine? You're going to go to your phone, it'll diagnose your thing and issue a prescription, right? Or if you go to
Yeah.
your attorney, I know guys fighting legal battles using ChatGPT. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? And also too, the trades industry, like it, like if you look at it, there's a housing shortage still, and there's hasn't, from what I can tell, there aren't any solutions or
Right.
nothing that I can see in the future that's making me think that that's going to be solved anytime soon. The labor shortage isn't getting any better, right? So you have more of a demand going up. People are exiting the labor force. Costs are going up. Like this is, you're always going to have demand for it, at least for the foreseeable future. That like AI can't solve that
I
as
mean, it
much as
can't,
the other
like
problems you mentioned.
AI certainly can make your sales calls for you, can set your appointments for you, can do your marketing for you, can even collect your money for you. But as of yet, they haven't got drones that can put on roofs or do a
That's
remodel.
Yeah. It can help your business operating systems a great deal. We're looking into that quite a lot. There's a lot of great solutions to increase your overhead efficiency as a trades business. But yeah, it can't actually do the work.
I mean,
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine has a software company, and what happens is it's an HVAC company, but literally there's an app that can go on your phone, and when you go to repair something, it'll diagnose what's wrong with it because it knows more than you do. You just tell what it is and what's wrong. The app diagnoses what's wrong with it. It then tells you how to fix it and then orders the parts on one app. It's
No
like
way. Oh,
like
wow.
25 bucks a month, right? And it pays the whole thing, right? So
Wow.
things like, and now if you look at roofing, literally, there's some roofer, they can literally, they know, they can look at your roof, do the appraisal, have you a quote in like a minute and a half because they've already got pictures of every roof on the planet, at least everyone's in the United States, right?
Wow.
So,
Wow.
and now AI is making sales calls for people. It's literally calling people up and making appointments because a good AI you can't tell from a person. I mean, it's so good now, there's no way to tell the difference. And that's now. Who knows what's going to be? So I think using AI for support and systems will help you, but it's still not going to put on the roof. It's still not do the remodel. It still physically is not going to build the house. It's just systems, right? So to me, there's a tremendous opportunity, especially people like yourself, that can help the clients install these systems and then make it a marketable commodity in a market where they're looking for that stuff, right?
Yeah, it's a huge market, and like every single time I've seen a contractor um, build a brand, for example, that gives them visibility over the rest of the contractors in their city and set up sales systems. I mean, to talk about AI for sales systems now, I just talked to an I've changed the subject a little bit. I talked to an AI avatar the other day, Jeff Borovitz. I mean, he's top sales coach. You probably know him. He showed me their AI system that he has in his company, and I was talking to this robot. I thought I was talking to a person. It was but you just deploy that in your company and a brand and some simple operating
Right.
system. You're doing significantly better than everybody else in the marketplace. Like
Well,
all of life
it's
works on a
like,
bell
you
curve,
know,
right?
even the spiritual side, Deepak Chopra, who is one of the guys I've read for a long time, is building an AI version of himself and having read all his books. So he says, the AI version is around forever. I'm not. So you won't be able to tell the difference by the time I get done. I went, that's sort of cool. So, I mean, it's changing everything. But I think your idea of having capital and changing somebody from a business owner to like what do you want to call it? An entrepreneur or somebody who's going to like build wealth is a huge shift for a lot of these people.
Yeah, we see a great opportunity there. A lot of business owners, like you said, they want to go down the private equity route. They just want to sell their business for $6 million and go buy a cabin on a river somewhere. We work with the business owners in the trade sector, specifically construction companies right now, to take their wealth and deploy it into assets that appreciate in value while they're operating
Right.
their company very, very efficiently. So we cater to all those people.
Well, it sounds like a great business model. So if you have a construction company, and that everybody listening to this probably does, and you're interested in building wealth, I said you either, what is it? You can either earn a living, what is it? Most people are too busy earning a living to make any money. I'm sure you've heard that. So if you're in the earning living part and you want to make some money, I would say Paul is a guy to call, right?
Great. Yeah. Highspire.com.
Oh, highspire.com. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate being here. I think it's a great business model. And if you really want to build wealth, you're not going to do it by owning a business. You're going to do it by creating capital and knowing where to invest that. And I think Paul's the guy to talk to. Also, he can tell you how to get your business running straight, which is awesome. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate being here.
Hey, thanks, Paul. This was fun. Appreciate it.